George Mitchell is a person who has had great visions of the future. He looks down the pathway 10, 20, 30 years, and he goes after those visions.
When he had a vision, he would just repeat it to you. At every meeting, he would say, we've got to do this, we've got to do this.
When you call him a visionary, I think you tie him into a long line of Americans who simply think broadly when they wake up.
George Mitchell grew up on Galveston Island. As a child, he worked at a local fishing pier for a small salary and a portion of the fish he caught. That work ethic served him well at Texas A&M. He finished first in his class in petroleum engineering.
He was entrepreneurial even then. He sold stamps and stationery to the cadets in the Corps here at Texas A&M to write home every week to their parents, their families. And he made a lot of money by those days' standards by having a network of people around the campus here who were his agents, who sold these things for him, and he got profit out of that.
George served in the Army Corps of Engineers during World War II, and when the war ended, two career paths were open to him.
You're going to stay, become what amounts to an independent producer and marketer of oil and gas in the U.S., or you're going to cast your lot with one of the big companies that's going to the Middle East, to the giant oil fields that develop all through the 50s and 60s.
George chose to follow his own path with a Texas wildcatting company.
He has a great advantage. He's a really good geologist. So you hit some, but you hit a lot more if you're a really good geologist.
Early in his career, George went looking for oil in Wise County, Texas, which was known as a wildcatter's graveyard. Undeterred, George struck oil. That tenacious spirit helped him build Mitchell Energy and Development Corporation into a Fortune 500 company. He led the discoveries of 200 oil and 350 gas wells and participated in more than 10,000 wells, making him one of the most successful wildcatters in Texas history. In the 1960s, George had a vision for a community unlike anything Texas had seen before, a master-planned city where residents could live and work in a natural environment. By 1974, he dedicated the Woodlands, a 25,000-acre development north of Houston. Today, with more than 40,000 homes and 1,700 businesses, it's regarded as one of the most successful projects of its type anywhere.
George understands that problem of trying to have humans and nature coexist in a very fragile way. It wasn't a matter of just bulldozing everything down and building tract houses. That wasn't his goal. He wanted to put houses and businesses into the environment that existed right then and make it a very pleasant place to be, and people love it there.
For George, the idea of sustainability was important. He founded the Houston Advanced Research Center, a nonpartisan, multi-university institution that promotes sustainability practices. He also helped establish the Texas Energy and Climate Change Program to help ensure a clean energy future for Texas. In the 1980s and into the 90s, George set out to find an efficient way to extract natural gas from underground shale rock formations.
We tried every conceivable technique of fracturing and trying to improve the production. And so we eventually started improving at our technique. And they kept telling me, "You waste your time." That's what they kept telling me.
Against the wishes of Mitchell Energy investors and the advice of his own staff, George never gave up. The resulting innovation, hydrofracking, changed the industry and has produced more than 500,000 new jobs across the country.
He stayed with this idea that shale would produce if you could just crack the code, essentially, and figured out how to do it. And he stayed with fracking. He tried different ways to frack. 17 years that he committed to figuring this puzzle out, and he finally did.
It will transform the energy industry in America. It will probably take our dependency on foreign imports and change that to really becoming more of an exporting country in energy.
This development is roughly equivalent historically to the Spindletop oil field discovery, which brought the attention of the whole nation to the Texas Gulf Coast as the place to go to find oil.
Hydrofracking also opened up the Barnett Shale near Fort Worth. believed to be one of the largest producible reserves of any onshore natural gas field in the U.S.
It's really caught fire all over the world. It's amazing what's happening.
George has continued to invest in education, supporting research on everything from brain disorders and cancer to climate change. Overall, he's given more than $160 million to Texas universities and research centers. In Galveston, he and his late wife Cynthia helped to revive the historic Strand District by restoring more than 20 buildings. He even helped bring back Mardi Gras. He's weathered his share of hurricanes, and 2 of his properties, the Galvez Hotel and the Tremont House, are still jewels thanks to George's vow to always rebuild.
He saw historic preservation as a unique asset that would draw families to live in Galveston as well as visitors to come there. He has made history in Galveston.
He also has made history by being an oil man who said we can do this with sustainability. He's a conservationist, an environmentalist, and he has given so generously to the causes that make life better.
He's been tenacious about it. He's never given up. This guy can go for decades and go through failures to get where he wants to be. That's a rare, rare quality in this day and time.
That's been a theme of his life. We can do better. People who know him, I suspect, will also say a thoroughly decent man. Isn't it nice to have this kind of an influence in history making and remain a thoroughly decent man?
Tonight we honor George Mitchell with the History Making Texan Award for his visionary and tenacious leadership and for all the ways he's made Texas better.